Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to continue my series going over all of the class feats, action skills, and passive skills for all 6 characters of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. And today we're going to be looking at the Clawbringer. Now the class feat for the Clawbringer is a Wyvern Companion. The Clawbringer is accompanied by a Wyvern Companion that flies through the environment and attacks enemies with its claws and fire breath. Any increase to the Fate Maker's damage also apply to their companions. And something to note with that is you can have 2 companions in Wonderlands if you choose 2 classes that have companions as their class feats. So I think the Clawbringer is pretty much going to be a requirement if you want to do a double companion build, because any damage boost you get also go to your companions. And the first action skill for the Clawbringer is Cleansing Flames. The Fate Maker summons her hammer and slams it into the ground, dealing melee damage and creating a massive fire nova, dealing fire ability damage to nearby enemies. So just a big AoE fire attack. Then the second ability is Storm Dragon's Judgment. The Fate Maker summons their hammer and hurls it, dealing lightning ability damage to all enemies it touches. It sticks wherever it lands and deals lightning melee damage every second to nearby enemies. The Fate Maker can recall the hammer, damaging enemies along its path, ending the action skill early and refunding a portion of the cooldown. So essentially you're Thor. But this is a pretty cool ability because it has multiple parts to it. You throw it, deal damage to everything it hits, then it lands and creates a big lightning AoE. But then you can also call it back to you anytime you want, and calling it back to you damages everything that it hits coming back to you, and you refund a portion of its cooldown. So if you throw it somewhere, it kills that enemy, it's not hitting anything, you can call it back and get a big reduction on the cooldown of the ability. And then next up we have passive skills, and these are going to be all the things that are in your skill tree, and these are split up into tiers or rows. So first off, we have tier 1. We have Oath of Fire with 5 points max. The Fate Maker deals a bonus fire damage with their guns, and their Wyvern Companion deal bonus fire damage. Next we have Radiance with 5 points max. The Fate Maker gains increased maximum ward capacity, and wards are the shields of this game. Then we have Oath of Thunder, 5 points max. The Fate Maker deals bonus lightning damage with their melee attacks, and their Wyvern Companions deal bonus lightning damage. So between Oath of Fire and Oath of Thunder, you have 2 different builds starting off there. So you have a gun build and a melee build, and both of them also boost up their Wyvern Companions. And I'm wondering if there's going to be specific items or weapons throughout the game that increase only specific elemental types. So this weapon deals bonus fire damage, this item gives you bonus lightning damage increase, stuff like that. So you could potentially build this character around one specific element. And then in tier 2, we have a Dragon Aura with 5 points max. The Fate Maker is surrounded by a Dragon Aura that grants himself and all allies inside it increased elemental damage. So this is the first class that has supporting abilities or passives that I've looked at, and this will just give you and all of your allies just increased elemental damage. And I'm pretty sure, even though it doesn't say it, this should also increase the damage of all your companions, because your companions get your damage increases. Then we have Dedication, 5 points at max. The Fate Maker gains increased action skill cooldown rate. The higher their ward, the greater the bonus. So we already see some synergies with the increased ward in tier 1 and this ability. So you could do a really tanky ward build and use this talent, and it's going to reduce your action skill cooldown. So you'll be able to spam out more abilities while being very tanky. Then we have Rebuke, 5 points max. The Fate Maker gains damage reduction from all attacks. Additionally, all allies near the Fate Maker gain a chance to reflect damage back to their attackers as lightning damage. Now what's interesting about this passive is it's another support passive. You only get a damage reduction, but all of your allies have a chance to just reflect damage back as lightning damage, and depending on if there's some internal limit to this, or depending on the proc chains, this could potentially be incredibly strong, especially once we get into the end game. Having just a chance to reflect back the entirety of damage can be incredibly strong, and then also reflecting it as additional damage could potentially destroy enemies and stop you from taking a massive amount of damage. Then for tier 3, we have a Blast Helmet's Favor, 1 point max. It's a kill skill. Killing an enemy with a gun summons a fire orb that seeks out a nearby enemy, dealing fire ability damage. Killing an enemy with melee damage summons a lightning orb that seeks out an enemy, dealing lightning damage. So most likely likely this is always going to be taken. It's only 1 point and it affects both your guns and your melee attacks. And this could potentially be really strong as well, depending on how much scaling you can put into these orbs. You could potentially kill one enemy and this orb could potentially go kill just another enemy. And I'm wondering if these are AoE damage because it doesn't say either way. Then for tier 4, we have Firebolt, 1 point max. The Wyvern Companion will occasionally shoot firebolts at enemies, causing damage in an area and leaving a splat. Additionally, the Fate Maker gains increased gun damage. So this is just giving your Wyvern Companion another ability, and this shoots firebolts to create a big AoE. And I'm assuming the splat is an AoE field that deals damage over time, something like that. Then we have Friends to Flame, 5 points max. The Fate Maker's Wyvern Companion gains increased damage. So this is just more for a companion build and just giving the Wyvern increased damage. Then we have Storm Breath, 1 point max. The Wyvern Companion will occasionally use its lightning breath on enemies, causing lightning damage that can arc from enemy to enemy. Additionally, the Fate Maker gains increased damage reduction. So again, giving your Wyvern Companion another possible ability. And I'm wondering if your Wyvern Companion will just start to spam out abilities if you go into all of their different ability options. And depending on how much you could scale up your Wyvern, having a lightning breath that then also arcs to a ton of different enemies could be an incredibly strong AoE ability. Then for tier 5, we have Awe, 3 points max. After dealing fire damage, the Fate Maker gains increased critical hit damage. After dealing lightning damage, the Fate Maker gains increased critical hit chance. And there's definitely a theme with some of these passives that seems like there's going to be a build for the Clawbringer that is focused on gun and melee damage primarily, because now there's a few passives that buff both your guns and your melee damage. So with this, you could potentially go hit a target with your melee hit, get increased critical chance, then go deal fire damage. With that increased critical chance, get the increased critical damage and have a buff to both of these. And also something that's interesting with this is that the fire damage increase isn't specifically from guns, but some of the other passives specifically have your guns dealing fire damage. So that's why it could be a synergy with your guns and melee. Then we have Indomitable, 1 point max. If the Fate Maker would enter Save Your Soul, instead they refill their ward and deal bonus lightning damage for a short time. This skill has a long cooldown. And this is most likely something a lot of solo players with a Clawbringer will use. It's only 1 point and it saves you from going into Save Your Soul, especially on boss fights. This could just save you in a boss fight. So instead fully refills your ward, and the Clawbringer seems like it's going to be a class that is going to want really high ward, so that could just make you massively tanky and you just deal additional damage, but it's going to have a long cooldown. I would suspect probably like 180 seconds or something like that. Then for tier 6, we have Storm Smite, 1 point max. Whenever the Fate Maker activates an action skill, they call down elemental bolts that deal fire ability damage or lightning ability damage to all nearby enemies. And this one passive right here makes me interested in seeing a really low cooldown Clawbringer build to where you can just spam out action skills all the time super quickly and proc the Storm Smite because it doesn't say it has a cooldown anywhere. So you can just keep spamming out abilities and keep getting this big burst of damage. And I'm also not sure if it's just going to be a random 50-50 between dealing fire damage or lightning damage, or if you're somehow going to be able to manipulate this by maybe having higher fire ability damage or something of that nature. And that's pretty much all the information we have to go over for the Clawbringer. Definitely some very interesting synergies going on here between your melee attacks doing lightning damage, your guns doing fire damage, having some options to synergize a build that focuses on melee and weapons, or just fully going into a companion build and making your Wyvern have a ton of different abilities and massive damage increases. But that's pretty much all I want to go over for this video. So subscribe if you want to see more Wonderlands or other videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. If you comment down below what you guys think about the Clawbringer, and thanks for watching.